Thank you so much for watching. You know, I have a very special message to share with you this week about transition. Are you in a transition? Are you in a place of transition in your life? Maybe, you've worked at the same place for several years, a few years, many years, and you feel like God's transitioning you out. Maybe a marriage ended and you're in a new transition in your life. Maybe you just graduated from college or high school and you're in a new transition. Well, I want to teach you a few things that I'm learning, that I've applied in my life whenever transition happens. I shared on last week's podcast that my ministry is in a major transition phase. After 22 years of working for my dad, serving him, being the CEO for 11 years, God spoke to me one day this year in 2014 and told me it was time to launch out. He actually said, "Fly, Terri, fly." Use this bird analogy and told me that it was time to fly. In other words, it was time to leave the nest. And the nest is a comfortable place. I like the nest, but the Lord was telling me it was time to go. Well, when I met with my dad that morning, it was actually like April 9th, April 10th, I met with him and shared with him what the Lord said. I was crying so hard, because I love serving my dad. I love helping him in ministry. And the Lord was telling me it was time to actually physically leave our headquarters here in Fort Worth, Texas, and open offices near Dallas. So I'm telling my dad this, and I'm crying, and it's not necessarily what my flesh wants to do. Well, he said, as soon as I shared with him everything, he immediately said, "You've heard from God." He said, "This is the will of God." Well, that brought me so much peace. Doesn't it just bring you peace when you know the decision you're about to make? It is the will of God. Well, I left that day after I met with my dad. I had so much peace, but then all of a sudden, it was like this grieving just came on me, and I just started crying so hard, leaving the familiar, leaving what I've loved and known for 22 years of my life. Well, I finally texted my dad and I just said, "Dad, I didn't know it would be this hard. I don't know why I'm crying so hard." My dad texted me back and he said these words, "Transition is God's way of promotion." I want you to hang on to those words. Transition is God's way of promotion. Whatever you're dealing with right now, whatever transition means to you, I want you to think of it as a promotion. And I want you to listen to this dream I had one night because it was so comforting and so real. And I really haven't had many dreams like this in my life. But one night, during this transition phase this summer, I went to bed one night and I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I had this dream that was so real. I dreamed I was in a Suburban with Kenneth Copeland, which is kind of funny because he's like a second dad to me. We drove up to this resort, this hotel, and I was serving Mr. Copeland. I had this little trash bag and I was cleaning up all the trash, and all of a sudden he said to me, "Let's go." So we got out of the Suburban, we walked into this lobby of this resort, and he grabbed my hand and he started leading me into this indoor swimming pool. And I looked at him like, "Wait a minute, I'm not ready." And I don't even have a swimsuit on. Can I just go change? And he said, "Come on." And he led me into this swimming pool, and it got all the way about up to my shoulders. The water was about that high, and he was holding my hand the whole time. And he looked at me and he said, "This is not what you planned, it's what I planned." And then he said to me, "I've got you. Everything's gonna be okay." Well, he turned around, we got out of the water, and Mr. Copeland just disappeared. Well, I went over and grabbed a towel and I started drying off. About that time, I saw his son, John Copeland, who's like a brother to me. I saw John walking up and I said, "John!" Well, then John walked up and just scooped me up like a baby and carried me into the water. I said, "John, you're not going to believe this, but your father just did the exact same thing, but he held my hand." And I said, "Can we just wait? I wasn't ready for this." And I meant, "Would y'all just let me go put the swimsuit on?" He said to me the exact same thing. He said, "It's not what you planned, it's what I planned." And he carried me all the way into the swimming pool till it got about to my shoulders. And he said to me, "Everything's gonna be okay." Well, he carried me back out of the water, he disappeared, and that's when I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I said, "Lord, what was that about?" Well, the Lord began to show me instantly. He said, "The Father had your hand and the Son carried you." And in both situations, he said, Everything's going to be all right. Well, I want you to be encouraged by that dream because I know it wasn't just for me, it was for you. God is saying, don't freak out. Don't sweat, don't worry, don't be confused. Maybe you didn't plan this. It's not the exact sequence of events you were scheduling for your life. I know it's not for me. Maybe you had a totally different plan outlined in your mind. But God is saying it's not what you planned, it's what He planned. And in both situations, He said, the Father is holding your hand and the Son is carrying you. Don't freak out. You're going to be okay. Well, I want you to be encouraged by that because that's exactly what the Lord did for me and said to me was everything's going to be all right. Now listen to this. Transition is a vulnerable place. T.D. Jakes said, you're not completely hooked into your future, but you're locked out of your past. That's a vulnerable place to be. It's kind of like you're in between a caterpillar and a butterfly. There's not even a name for you. You're in that transition phase. But listen to this. The moment you make up your mind you're going somewhere, you become a threat to the enemy. You already are a threat to the enemy. The moment you make up your mind, I'm not staying where I'm at. I'm not going backwards, that's for sure. I'm going where God tells me to go. I might be afraid, I might be concerned, but God's got my hand and Jesus is carrying me. I want you to hang on to that, and I want to challenge you with some steps to practice in your life. Worship wins the battle. You're in a battle right now. If you're in a transition, you're in a battle. Worship wins the battle. Do what Jehoshaphat did. When he had all the armies coming against him, what did he do? He got on his knees and began worshiping God. Number one, worship God. Number two, set aside time. Schedule it on your calendar. If it's 10 minutes, say 10 minutes a day, I will worship the Lord. Number three, play worship music. That's what creates an atmosphere in your heart and in your home to worship the Lord. I want to challenge you to do those things. And number four, don't complain. Start worshiping God for who He is. Just change your attention. Magnify how big your God is. Stop talking about how big your problem is. And I'm telling you, worship wins the battle. Transition is God's way of promotion. If you're enjoying these podcasts, subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook so I can keep you encouraged to go after your dreams. Thanks for watching.